My name is Clara Morrison, and I am 29 years old. A lot of people who know me would tell you. I'm calm, maybe even too calm. I'm the kind of woman who double checks the locks, labels the folders in the filing cabinet, and lets small annoyances slide because it feels easier than starting a fight. For most of my life, that quietness was interpreted as softness. For a long time, even I believed that. 3 years ago, my father died of pancreatic cancer. If you've ever watched someone you love shrink into hospital sheets, you know there are some memories you never shake. The beeping machines, the antiseptic smell, the way strong hands start to tremble when they reach for yours. My dad had very little strength left when he called me over and pressed his watch into my palm, an Omega Seamaster he bought with his first big commission check back in 1992. He wore it every single day until he couldn't fasten the strap himself. "This stays in the family," he told me, voice rough, fingers curled around mine. I promised him it would. That watch became more than metal and gears. It was the last thing he gave me, wrapped in all the years he spent working, laughing, and trying to do right by us. After he passed, I had it serviced in my name, insured in my name, and stored in a small safe in my apartment. Not because I'm materialistic, but because some things are irreplaceable in a way a bank account will never be. If you had asked me last week, I would have said my life was finally stabilizing. I had a decent job, a small but cozy place, and a fiancé, Brandon, who talked about our future like it was already guaranteed. Wedding Pinterest boards, honeymoon ideas, a house someday. He was charming, loud where I was quiet, spontaneous where I was careful. I told myself we balanced each other. I told myself he loved me. Last Thursday, I opened in the safe to grab my dad's watch. I don't wear it often, but that day felt like one of those days when I needed him close. I knelt in front of the open door, reached in for the familiar box, and lifted the lid. The velvet interior stared back at me, painfully empty. My brain hiccuped, like it misread what my eyes were seeing. I checked again, pulled the box out, shook it gently as if the watch might magically appear from a hidden compartment. Nothing. The safe was open. The watch box was there. The watch was not. For a moment, the world went very, very quiet. My first instinct was to think I had moved it, that I'd misplaced the most important object I owned. That's what quiet people do. We look for ways to blame ourselves before we dare blame anyone else. But I hadn't taken it out. I knew I hadn't. My hands started to shake as I went through the shelves, checking everything. Passport, documents, jewelry I hardly wear, all there. Only the watch was gone. My stomach dropped. There were exactly two people who knew that safe existed, me and Brandon. I grabbed my phone and called him. He picked up on the second ring, his voice bright and bubbly. "Hey, babe, you will not believe the deal I found at Nordstrom Rack today. I swear, it's like the universe wants our wedding photos to be iconic." "Where is my father's watch?" My own voice didn't sound like mine. It came out low, flat, and cold. There was a moment of silence, the kind where you can almost hear someone switching gears in their head. "I was going to talk to you about that tonight," he said. "Talk to me now." "Well," he exhaled, as if I were the unreasonable one. "It was just sitting there, collecting dust in the safe, Clara. Jerome offered me $8,000 for it. That's practically the whole budget for the photographer we wanted. I did it for us." Jerome, his cousin. The one who called his pawn shop a luxury goods exchange downtown. Like changing the words made the shelves less secondhand. "You sold my dead father's watch," I said slowly, "to your cousin, for wedding money." "It's not like that," he rushed. "Okay, yes, I sold it, but I used some of it for something special for me too. Self-care is important before a wedding, you know, and these Louboutins were 60% off. You should see them. I hung up. For a full minute, I just stood in the middle of my living room, phone in my hand, heart pounding in my ears. This is what it feels like, I thought, when the floor you thought was solid suddenly gives way. When you realize the person you're planning to marry has a completely different definition of ours. Then the quiet part of me did what it always does. It moved. I walked to my filing cabinet and pulled out the folder labeled Dad Watch. Insurance paperwork listing the Omega Seamaster, serial number, appraised value, $12,000. My name as the sole owner in big, clear letters. The receipt from when my dad had it serviced 2 months before he died, also in my name. Photos of the watch from multiple angles. Everything I needed to prove what I already knew. The watch was mine, legally and morally. If I let this go, what else would I be agreeing to? If I let him cross this line, how many more lines would he step over because he assumed I was too quiet, too accommodating to stop him? My fingers dialed the non-emergency police number before I could talk myself out of it. Local PD, how can I help you? I need to report a stolen watch, I said. My voice shook at first, then steadied. An Omega Seamaster worth approximately $12,000. I have insurance documentation, serial number, and photos. I also know where it was taken and who has it. They took my statement. I gave them Jerome's business name and address, explained how I'd discovered the theft, and clarified that the watch had been insured and documented solely under my name. The officer on the line was calm, professional. We'll send someone to check the shop, he said. If we locate it, we'll contact you to come identify it. We may also pursue charges for receiving stolen property and for the theft itself. After I hung up, I sat on the couch and stared at the blank television screen. My reflection looked like a stranger, someone who had just made a choice she couldn't unmake. I thought about my dad, about that hospital room, about the way his fingers tightened around mine when he said, "This stays in the family." "I'm trying, Dad," I whispered. "I'm trying to keep my promise." Hours later, around 7 in the evening, the apartment door opened. Brandon walked in carrying 3 shopping bags and wearing red-soled heels that were almost comically high. He was grinning at his own reflection in the darkened window before he finally noticed me sitting there. "Why do you look like someone died?" he joked, then smirked. "Oh, wait. You're not still hung up on that old watch, are you?" "I'm not upset," I said. My voice was too calm, even to my own ears. "Good," he said quickly, rushing into the space my words seemed to give him, "because I have amazing news. Genevieve can fit us in for engagement photos next month if we put down the deposit tomorrow. This is huge, Clara." "We're not taking engagement photos," I replied. He actually laughed. "Don't be dramatic. You keep clinging to old things. We're building a future here." My phone rang. "Unknown local number," I answered. "Ms. Morrison? This is Detective Harris with local PD. We've located your watch at Premier Luxury Exchange. The owner confirms he received it from a Brandon Hawthorne. We'll need you to come verify it's yours. We'll be pursuing charges for receiving stolen property and theft." My chest tightened, but my decision didn't waver. "Understood," I said. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Brandon's face went pale as I hung up. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "I reported the watch stolen," I said, standing. "Because it was. It's insured in my name. You had no right to sell it." "Are you insane? I'm your fiancé." "Ex-fiancé," I corrected. I walked past him toward the door. His new shoes clicked frantically across the hardwood as he followed. "You can't be serious, Clara. It's just a watch. I did this for us, for our future." No," I said, turning to look at him one last time. "You did it for $8,000 and a pair of designer shoes. Jerome is your family. He's the one who chose to buy a $12,000 watch without verifying ownership. You both knew exactly what you were doing." He grabbed my arm, panic finally cracking through his confidence. "If you go through with this, we're over." "We're already over it," I said. I pulled my arm free, opened the door, and stepped into the hallway. His voice followed me, angry, pleading, shifting tones like he was trying on whatever might work, but I didn't stop. At that moment, I thought I was just protecting a watch and my father's memory. I had no idea that by the time this was over, I would have helped dismantle an entire family's illusion that there are never consequences. The morning after everything unraveled, I woke up to a text from the detective confirming the watch had been logged into evidence for the case and would be released back to me once photographed. I stared at that message for a long time, feeling something strange and unfamiliar, relief mixed with a bitter sort of vindication. I had kept my promise to my father, but I knew the fallout wasn't even close to over. By noon, the watch was back in my hands. The detective placed it on a table and let me inspect it under supervision. When my fingers touched the metal, cold and familiar, a lump formed in my throat. "It's yours," he said softly. "We'll be in touch about the next steps." I thanked him and stepped outside into the kind of bright daylight that feels almost rude after a night of emotional destruction. I held the watch against my chest for a moment before placing it in its box. I should have felt whole, but betrayal has a way of echoing long after the item is returned. When I got home, I noticed the calls. 9 missed from an unknown number, then 10, then 12. On the 19th attempt, my phone lit up with his name, Brandon. I answered, more out of exhaustion than curiosity. "You evil witch," he spat the moment I picked up. "I'm in jail." Okay, I said flatly. Okay? I've been here for 6 hours. They took my shoes, Clara, the Louboutins. Do you know how expensive they were? This isn't funny. I need bail. It's $3,000. Please, I can't stay here. Then call someone who has $3,000, I said. I'll lose my job. Probably. My parents will kill me. I doubt it. He sobbed, loud and messy. Clara, please, I'm sorry, okay? I made a mistake. Can't you just tell them it was a misunderstanding? It wasn't. My voice stayed even, almost detached. You waited until I was at work, opened my safe with a combination you shouldn't have had, stole my property, and sold it. A misunderstanding is grabbing the wrong coat, not grand theft. I bought the shoes for the wedding, he insisted, as if that somehow redeemed him. What wedding? I asked. We're not getting married. The line went quiet before he whispered, You're throwing away 2 years over a watch? No, I said. I'm throwing away 2 years because you're a thief who thought I was too weak to do anything about it. I hung up. He didn't call again. But the universe has a way of filling silence with noise. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time from a woman with a slurred voice, dripping hostility. How dare you, she barked the moment I answered. How dare you traumatize my baby boy like this? Brandon's mother, Diane. I had only met her twice, both times over wine and passive-aggressive comments about my quiet personality. You're going to march down to that police station right now, she continued, and tell them to release my son. No, I said simply. No, she repeated, like the word was personally offensive. It's a watch. My son's life matters more than some dusty old antique. Then perhaps, I said, you should have taught him not to steal. He didn't steal, she shrieked. He was planning your wedding. With my property, without my permission. And he bought himself shoes while he was at it. They were on sale. I hung up. An hour later came the next call from his father, Richard. His tone was calmer, but condescending in a way that made my skin crawl. Let's handle this privately, he said. Man to woman. Your son stole from me, I replied. He made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, not pawning a family heirloom. There was a pause, the kind where someone realizes their usual tactics won't work. You really won't drop this? Would you let someone steal your service medals? I asked. Your father's belongings? Your wedding ring? Silence. Then, I see your point. But not enough to do anything about it. The real explosion happened on Monday morning. I learned what happened from a coworker of Brandon's, Trevor, who posted about it in the Discord group we all shared. Yo, Brandon just got arrested at work, he typed. 2 cops in full uniform walked into our Monday stand-up meeting. This is insane. He didn't know we'd broken up yet. My phone buzzed with his message a moment later. Clara, is this real? I didn't respond. Brandon called me again from holding. I didn't answer. Then the flood began. His mother posted on social media. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. 2 years wasted on a sociopath who cares more about things than people. #survivor, #narcissistic abuse, #healing journey. Attached was a photo of Brandon's mugshot. She genuinely thought it made him look sympathetic. The comments said otherwise. Girl, you posted his mugshot? Wait, you got arrested and he's the problem? What did he do? Someone who knew the truth jumped in. Didn't he steal her dead dad's watch and buy shoes with the money? Diane replied, It was in their house. How is that stealing? Because it wasn't his, the commenter wrote. The post was deleted within minutes. Then came a new one. Taking a social media break to heal from trauma. Real friends know the truth. Real friends were texting me asking what actually happened. Then the donations started. A crowdfunding link appeared that afternoon. Help Brandon rebuild after domestic abuse. Goal, $15,000. He described the event as, My ex-fiancée had me arrested for trying to pay for our wedding. She called the police on my elderly grandmother. This is financial abuse. I need money for therapy and legal fees. He'd raised $37. A single comment beneath it read, Didn't you steal her dad's watch? But what mattered wasn't the money. It was the fact that he described the theft in detail, admitting he took and sold the watch, in writing, for the public. I screenshotted everything and sent it to the prosecutor. His reply was short, Thank you. Meanwhile, the police were now taking a closer look at Jerome. That's when things spiraled. It turned out my watch wasn't the only questionable item in his shop. And Brandon's little stunt had just opened the door to something much bigger. By Wednesday afternoon, the situation detonated into something far larger than a stolen watch. Jerome's shop, his so-called luxury goods exchange, had been hit with a search warrant. The detective later told me it was what they call a target-rich environment. 3 stolen laptops, jewelry linked to a burglary 2 months earlier, electronics reported missing by several of his ex-clients. and my watch had been the thread that, once pulled, unraveled the whole tapestry. I hadn't meant to expose a criminal ring. I just wanted my father's watch back. But consequences have a way of echoing louder when a family has spent decades sweeping them under a rug. The next shockwave arrived that night, with heavy, rapid banging on my apartment door, sharp enough to rattle the frame. Before I could process what was happening, a shrill voice screamed from the hallway. "Open this door, you ungrateful little girl!" It was Diane, and she hadn't come alone. When I opened the door, not out of bravery, but because the pounding made it clear they'd keep going, 3 figures pushed past me into my living room. Diane, her daughter Cassidy, who I had only met once but remembered being glued to her phone, and their grandmother, Dolores, who moved surprisingly fast with a walker. "Where's my grandson's hope chest?" Dolores demanded, shaking the walker for emphasis. "Her what?" I asked. "The wooden chest from his room," Diane said, already tearing open boxes I'd packed. "It has all his childhood memories. And you are hoarding it. Give it back." "There's no chest here," I said. "His things are boxed in that corner. You can take them and leave." But they weren't listening. Diane ripped open boxes, tossing my late father's books aside like they were trash. Cassidy circled the room with her phone out, live streaming. "This is going viral," she sang. "Abusive ex refuses to return family heirlooms. Stay tuned, guys." I took a slow breath. Calm. Stay calm. Quiet people know how to survive chaos by staying still in the center of it. "You all need to leave," I said. "No one's leaving without what's ours," Diane snapped. "You already destroyed Brandon's life. Now you're trying to take his memories too? You're sick." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "Hi," I said evenly when the operator answered. "I have 3 people who forced their way into my apartment and are refusing to leave." The change was immediate. Dolores clutched her chest dramatically. "My heart," she moaned. "The stress, my pills. I need my pills." "You're killing my mother," Diane shrieked, pointing at me like she was accusing a witch in a medieval trial. Cassidy kept filming, whisper narrating to her followers. He invited us in, then called the cops. Classic manipulation. At that exact moment, my doorbell camera chimed. Someone was watching the live footage from outside. Perfect. When the officers arrived, Dolores magically recovered. The moment she saw uniforms. Diane was elbow deep in my closet. Cassidy was narrating a dramatic monologue into her phone. "He invited us," she started. I reached for my tablet, opened the doorbell camera playback, and pressed play. There was no mistaking it. 3 women forcing their way inside the moment I cracked the door open. The officers watched the footage in silence. Then, "Ma'am, you and your family need to leave immediately. You're trespassed from this property. If you return, you will be arrested." Dolores shot me a look that could have curdled milk. "You horrible little thing," she hissed as the officers escorted her out. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned back against it. My whole body felt electric, not with fear, but with clarity. These people weren't just dysfunctional. They operated on a different reality altogether, one where accountability was an optional accessory. The next morning proved that even more. I arrived at work, greeted security, and barely got to my desk before the receptionist hurried toward me. "There's someone outside holding a sign," she whispered. "For you." I walked to the front window. There, standing in the plaza for everyone to see, was Brandon. His hair was messy, his dress shirt wrinkled, and in his hands was a large cardboard sign that read, "Clara Morrison destroyed my life over a watch." My coworkers whispered behind me, stunned and wide-eyed. Security called the police, again. He was arrested on the spot for violating the no-contact order that came with his theft charge. I watched from behind the glass as officers pulled the sign out of his hands and cuffed him. The expression on his face wasn't anger this time, it was bewilderment, like he genuinely couldn't understand how any of this could be his fault. An hour later came another call from a blocked number. "You're going to pay for this," Diane snarled. "I know people. You think this is over? Watch what happens next." "You should be more worried about your cousin," I said quietly. "He's looking at 5 to 10. She hung up. Thursday morning brought a twist I never expected. Richard called again. His voice was different this time, softer, maybe even tired. "I owe you an apology," he said. "For what?" I asked cautiously. "For not believing you. For assuming this was you being dramatic. I looked into everything. My son, the shop, the transactions. You were right, about all of it." There was a long pause before he continued. "Do you remember when Brandon told you his college roommate made up lies about him?" he asked. "Yes." "Well, Brandon stole her laptop and textbooks. Sold them for spring break money. We paid her off not to press charges. My stomach dropped. And the 3 jobs he said he lost because of personality conflicts? Theft every time. Diane always handled it, always made it go away. She's been doing it his whole life. I swallowed hard. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm done, he said. I filed for divorce on Monday. 28 years of enabling this family, and I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be. You got lucky. 2 years with him, and you walked. I wasted 3 decades. When the call ended, I sat on my couch, stunned. My report hadn't just uncovered a crime. It had exposed an entire family system built on denial. And the worst part? We weren't done yet. The courthouse smelled like old paper and polished wood, the kind of place where decisions are carved into people's lives with the same permanence as initials etched into a tree. I sat in one of the long benches beside the aisle, hands folded in my lap, breathing slowly as people shuffled in. I expected Brandon to look defiant or angry when he walked through those double doors. Instead, he looked small. He wore a black dress shirt that hung awkwardly on his frame, his hair brushed back like he'd been coached to look remorseful. It didn't work. Diane strutted in behind him, leopard print blouse loud enough to be its own announcement. Her face was etched with theatrical outrage, the kind that begged for an audience. Cassidy had her phone out, recording a whispery play-by-play as though this was reality TV instead of a felony hearing. Dolores followed last, her walker clinking rhythmically against the tile floor. Every few seconds she sighed dramatically, as if on cue. Richard entered quietly and made the entire row behind me shift when he sat on my side of the courtroom. The decision was subtle but powerful. When Diane noticed him, her face twisted into something sharp and venomous. She mouthed something at him, probably an insult, but Richard didn't look back. He just stared ahead, jaw tight, hands clasped. A man finally choosing the truth after decades of excuses. When the judge entered, the whole room rose. She was the kind of woman who looked like she'd seen every human excuse invented and had developed a personal allergy to all of them. Her gaze swept over us, settling for a fraction of a second on Brandon, then me. The prosecutor stood first. Your Honor, we present evidence of theft of property valued at over $10,000, conspiracy to sell stolen goods, wire fraud stemming from a fraudulent crowdfunding campaign, harassment, and violation of a no-contact order. Diane gasped loudly. Cassidy whispered dramatically into her phone. Oh my God, this is insane. You guys, it's so corrupt. The judge snapped his head toward her. Put the phone away or leave my courtroom. Cassidy froze. Then Brandon's lawyer stepped forward, a slick man with a smile that was more veneer than sincerity. Your Honor, he began. My client acted under extreme emotional stress. He was preparing for a wedding and made an impulsive decision. Society pressures couples to create perfect ceremonies, and in a moment of fear and financial strain, he chose poorly. He deeply regrets this. The judge didn't blink. Her face remained unreadable. Miss Morrison, the prosecutor said, turning to me, can you confirm ownership of the watch and that your fiancé did not have your permission to access the safe or sell the item? Yes, I said. My voice didn't shake this time. The watch belonged to my late father and was insured and documented solely under my name. Brandon had no permission to take it. The judge nodded once, then turned her icy gaze toward Brandon. Step forward, Mr. Hawthorne. He approached with the timidity of someone hoping body language might count as remorse. Did you take the watch? Yes, he muttered. Did you have permission? We were engaged. The judge tapped her pen twice. Did you have permission? He swallowed. No. Did you sell it for personal gain? It was for our future, he said desperately. We needed money. The wedding. Answer the question, the judge interrupted. Yes or no? His shoulders drooped. Yes. The prosecutor handed over printed copies of the crowdfunding campaign, his own written confession, the embellished narrative, the lie about elderly relatives, the claims of abuse. The judge's mouth tightened. Mr. Hawthorne, she said, I have reviewed these documents. You showed no remorse. You attempted to profit from your actions. You harassed the victim multiple times. You involved your family in a pattern of intimidation. You violated a no-contact order, and you initiated a fraudulent fundraising campaign. Brandon's face crumpled. Real tears this time. Messy, loud, unstrategic. This is insane, he sobbed. It was just a watch. The judge's eyes sharpened. No, she said firmly. It was a theft of a valuable family heirloom that you sold for personal gain. Remove him from my courtroom. Two bailiffs approached. Diane jumped up. "This is a miscarriage of justice," she shrieked. "He's a victim. You're all corrupt." "Ma'am," the judge said, "continue, and you will be held in contempt." Diane fell silent, though her glare could have burned through steel. The sentencing was swift. 18 months probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory restitution of $12,000 to be paid within 2 years, and a permanent felony on his record. By the time the hearing ended, Brandon's face was blotchy. Diane was vibrating with rage. Cassidy was whisper-crying into the corner of her sleeve, and Dolores looked like she had aged another decade. Outside the building, Brandon made one last attempt. "Clara," he said, rushing forward before a bailiff stepped between us. "Please, you proved your point. Can't we fix this?" "No," I said. There was no anger in my voice, just clarity. "You didn't love me. You loved what you thought you could get from me." "That's not true," he pleaded. "You stole the last gift my father ever gave me," I replied, "for shoes." Cassidy raised her phone again. "Heartless ex-fiancé ruins—" "Ma'am," the prosecutor said sharply, "posting that could violate probation terms related to online harassment." Cassidy's arm froze midair. Slowly, reluctantly, she lowered her phone. As I stepped away, I saw Richard watching from the courthouse steps. He nodded once, a quiet acknowledgement that truth had finally pierced through years of denial. In the weeks that followed, the fallout spread like cracks in ice. Jerome took a plea deal. 3 years, possibly out in 18 months with good behavior. His shop closed permanently and was replaced by a boba tea cafe. Diane and Richard's divorce turned vicious. She demanded alimony. He produced recordings of her admitting to covering Brandon's previous thefts. Cassidy began a podcast about surviving narcissistic abuse, though people said it had fewer listeners than a dial tone. Dolores had another theatrical heart episode when she found out Richard wasn't paying for her assisted living anymore. As for me, my life slowly quieted again, the way a storm finally settles after ripping through a shoreline. I wasn't the same person, though. Quiet didn't mean weak anymore. It meant choosing peace over chaos, purpose over noise. I started seeing someone new, a man named Ethan from my boxing gym. Strong, grounded, gentle. When I told him the story, he blinked, then said, "He stole from you and bought shoes? Not even sunglasses or something useful?" "They were Louboutins," I admitted. He shook his head. Still terrible decision-making, for a lot of reasons. We laughed. For the first time in months, it felt real. My father's watch now stays in a safety deposit box. Newly serviced. Fully authenticated. The updated documentation includes a note added by the specialist. Previous theft attempted, recovered via legal action. He handed me the paper and chuckled. "Bet there's a story behind that." "You have no idea," I said. And I didn't regret any of it. Not the police report, not the hearings, not the quiet moments where I forced myself to stand firm. Some people mistake silence for weakness, but silence is just strength that waits.